Heather Quick, owner of Florida Women's Law Group. Thank you for joining us today. And I am going to talk to you about substance abuse in your spouse. It shows up all the time in many areas of our lives, but when you are going through a divorce, problems can be heightened. There is certainly more scrutiny by the courts, the lawyers on issues. And I'm not sure what causes what. I'm certainly not a therapist, but just with many years of experience in family law, I don't know if it's the substance abuse that leads to the divorce, if it's the unhappy marriage that exacerbates it. I'm not really sure. And I'm not here to really talk about that, but I'm here to help women going through this process recognize some things. Because when we're able to recognize and acknowledge issues in our marriage and or spouse, I think that just gives you greater awareness to make better decisions. And one of and so I've really identified three things, because we will have an opportunity to help so many women, and this comes up a lot. And so I've been asked by some of our team members to just address this in a video, because we're hopeful that it will reach some women that are looking for these answers. And of course, this issue is not specific to men or women or any kind of race, gender, social class. But we at the Florida Women's Law Group represent women. And so when I talk to it from that perspective, that's why. So the three things that I think, and I know from experience, happen when you have a spouse with substance abuse that you need to look out for. One, manipulation. And you'll know this whether it's subconsciously, intuitively, or not. Addicts are extremely manipulative. And I will use the term addict broadly. Alcoholic, drugs, and drugs are, an addict is an addict. So whether it's prescription or illegal, they're still an addiction and it's unhealthy. And then sometimes it becomes a mix. And it's just a very difficult situation for any family to be in, because I think our natural tendency, particularly with people you love, is to help them. And that's what we want to do. And we want to believe the ones we love. The addict is so manipulative. And it is a trait of that person under the influence and dealing with the addiction. So it's not probably the person that you knew at one time. And I think that's what makes it so hard to see. And when there is, when it's somebody you're married to and you share children with, a life, it's very difficult to acknowledge to yourself that you are being manipulated. And that can be with, I'm going to go get help, it's not that bad, or I quit and I'm not drinking, and I got this under control. And it comes with lies. It does. They are liars and manipulators. And it is, I don't know when it stops, maybe when they are recovered. It just takes a lot of help. And there's the substance abuse part, the psychological part, there's a lot there that is required. And when we're in the divorce process and we learn that their spouse has substance abuse issues and an addict, there may be a lot of false promises about the divorce. Just draw it up, I'll sign it. Also, from the perspective of the spouse who's not using, say our client, she's like, well, I don't want to make him mad because then he'll drink more or he'll go backwards in his treatment. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in those patterns, but it's just part of a cycle. And I will tell you, it is much easier to see from the outside looking in. It's very difficult to see within your own self. So no judgment here, no criticism, just my experience and how we are able to at least try to help our clients and say, we see this in a different way and we've been down this road more than you have, so we'd like to help you so that it doesn't have to be so difficult and drawn out. So the manipulation can be very extreme. It can involve the children, usually does, and other family members, and just everybody's circumstances are different, but I think it's just important to address it. There's going to be a lot of manipulation, and they're going to do whatever it takes to continue to hide their problem, to keep it from you and manage it on their own. The second thing that I would like for everybody to look at, some of the things that I see so often, is that treatment is absolutely necessary. It really is. And there's so many different types of treatment, and there are so many very well-respected and with great reputations mental health as well as substance abuse counselors that can help people through this process. But it's not a one and done usually, and it's not a 3-day inpatient detox when you're out, because it's more than just the substances. There's the psychology behind it that I'm not an expert in to talk about, except to say I know that you need one and they need one. It just takes a lot of work. Now, are you along for that ride or not? I know some treatment facilities and their professionals will say, well, usually takes like 3 runs through a program to get it right, and or they may still relapse. You know, I don't doubt that that's true. I don't know if it's true for everyone, but you need to be realistic with yourself, and are you in it for that? Can your children handle it? Can you handle it? Are you in a situation that is becoming unsafe, unpredictable because of their substance abuse? It doesn't always accompany violence. Sometimes it does. You may or may not have children, and you know, how does that affect that unit? I can tell you your family is well aware. Your children are anyway, if they're living in the house. And so treatment needs to be absolutely a deal breaker if you're in a relationship with somebody who has that substance abuse. Now, how much the court will get involved, say we're going through the divorce process and you're looking at, they have a problem and I want them to get help. It'll depend. It really will depend. Is it appropriate for the judge to order help? Sometimes they will. Sometimes they'll say, well, if you want to see your children unsupervised, you're going to have clean drug and alcohol testing. You're going to have to go through counseling. Sometimes they'll say, you just need to bring a plan. I'm not going to necessarily tell you what to do. It really depends on the judge, but I will tell you, if there are children involved, the court will place restrictions on someone before they can have time with their children unsupervised, meaning alone. That brings up an important point that I really do want to point out and talk about, because I've had this conversation with so many women, as our staff has. So you come into the office, we talk about the substance abuse, we talk about those issues, and one of the things I'll hear clients say is, well, I don't want to bring that up. I really would rather not address that in the divorce, and they have children. The problem with that is that if you don't, one, you're not being candid with the court and being honest. And if we are dealing with the issue of children, that's a factor that the courts need to consider. So it's not about being ugly, it's about the safety of your children and the courts being aware of what's going on. Now, you file for divorce and then 4 months later you bring it up, your credibility is going to be questioned. In a divorce, everything's under scrutiny, and it's difficult to, if you've lost that credibility in front of a judge, to get that back. My personal belief is that women can easily be painted as withholding children from their fathers. Very easily. That's the first thing that will be thrown at you. So if there is a problem that you are concerned about, you need to bring it up. Because likely, if we're 4 months into a divorce and you've been letting your children go over there every other weekend or whatever you've agreed to half the time, and then something happens that you decide, you know what, I do want the judge to know I don't like this arrangement, the court's going to be like, well, I don't think the kids are in any danger because you've freely been letting them go over there. And that's the reality. That is the common question that a court's going to wonder, why are you saying this now? And is it, in fact, your concern for your children's safety, or do you have ulterior motives? I've seen it too many times, and that's why I would rather you know ahead of time that that's how that could likely play out. If you take it seriously, let's take it seriously. If you have a concern, then we need to address it. That goes into the next part that I've seen many times in the divorce process with couples and the issue of substance abuse, and that is codependency. I'm not against psychologists, so I'm not even going to try to give you a definition, except you're helping out, okay? You are furthering the problem by your denial of the issue, or hiding it from others, and protecting your spouse. So you're not doing anyone any good by doing that. And I believe a lot in personal responsibility, and I do believe it's important to just look at your part in it. I'm not saying you're pouring alcohol down anyone's throat or giving them pills or pushing pills, but by your non-action, are you doing them any good? And I think that's a hard question to answer, very truthful, but if you can give it an honest answer, I think you'll find the answers on what decisions to make. Because as parents, all we want, I truly believe this is the best for our children. And that's where sometimes divorce gets hard, because you want your spouse to be the best version of themselves for your kids. And that doesn't always happen. And we're not always our best version of ourselves. And during divorce, it can be worse sometimes. But when you bring that substance abuse into it, and you are, if you're not part of the solution, are you part of the problem? And I'm not, throwing blame or judgment at anyone. It's just a question you have to ask for yourself and for your children. Is that what you want them to grow up learning? And you, in fact, for yourself, is that the life that you're going to tolerate being in? Because it's, after the divorce, at least you're not going to be around anymore to protect them from themselves. And it's one of the saddest things. I have known people in my life who were a normal human being, and that got the best of them, and it turned them into somebody that we didn't know, and that is really sad to see. So it's not easy if you're in that situation, and I don't pretend to believe that it is. I think you just have to make a decision that where you want to be, you want that more than the life you're living in for yourself and your children. We work with many substance abuse counselors. There are a lot of treatment options available. Even though I said yes, treatment's necessary, they don't want it. How much good is it going to do? But again, that's not your problem. If somebody just got out of rehab and you want a divorce, not divorcing them because you're afraid they're going to relapse is really just your ego talking. You have no control over what they're going to do. But it's a good pattern to fall into, because you are afraid and you don't want that for them. But the reality is you're not in control of that. They're in control of their own life and what they're going to do. So if you're in that situation and you need some guidance on how to proceed forward with divorce, we can help you here at Florida Women's Law Group. We can go over everything that you're concerned about and help you make a decision as to what you want to do to move forward. And certainly refer you to counselors and professionals that can help you heal, because you've been through a lot and your children may have as well. I don't know, depending on the extent of it. So it's really important to have that help that you need and that support and treatment. And it's possible that your spouse will get help through this process. But you have to be okay with the fact that if they don't, you're still doing the right thing. But it could lead them to make that decision. Because I've heard before, once they hit rock bottom, is when they realize that they don't have other choices, and then they make that decision if they're going to get better or not. But again, it's their decision. So if we can help you in any way get through this process, refer you to some professionals, we are here for you. We have been through this with so many clients, and we welcome the opportunity to get to know you and work through this with you.